Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl starting rosters, Amazons. We're going through every team available in Blood Bowl 2020, whether it's from the rulebook, a Spike magazine, or a team of legend, and we're putting together some of the best starting rosters for League. So we're looking at 1 million gold builds here specifically, so if you are planning on going to a Blood Bowl league or you're expecting to play Amazons in a Blood Bowl league, these example rosters should be what you can expect to run or play against. Now, Amazons have recently been reimagined by Games Workshop in Spike 15. Some of it's changed, some of it's the same. So let's have a look at Amazons. Okay, so the Amazon roster got changed a bit. The majority of it, the feel of it, the kind of thing they do hasn't changed. And that is that they are, the majority of them anyway, strength 3, low armor, medium movement with edge 3+ and dodge. A couple of things have definitely changed in this version. So the rerolls have gone up from 50k to 60k. That's not a massive impact. Your line women are still 50k, so your roster is still very affordable. But those rerolls being a little bit costlier definitely affects the way you want to kind of consider starting a roster with this team. The catcher positional has also gone now as well. So the catcher we didn't see used very often. It was still movement 6, edge 3+, and had catch. That was basically it. But don't need to worry about that. That is now gone. And really the biggest change to this roster is that the old blitzers, of which there used to be 4, have now entirely gone. No more block and dodge. In fact, this roster does not feature block at all, but it features plenty of dodge. So 0 to 4 old blitzers have been replaced by 0 to 2 new blitzers. Now, we've already said they don't have block. They don't have block, but they do have movement 7. They're still edge 3+, they're still strength 3, they're still armor 8+, but they now have that movement 7 to make them a little bit faster. They've got general and agility access as well, so they can become your fast players. They can become your catchers if you want catchers. But I guess the biggest and coolest thing that they get jump up as well to keep them nice and fast, but they get this skill called hit and run. Now, this is a brand new skill. In fact, it's a trait that is only applicable to this player, so you won't see it anywhere else until Games Workshop adds it in the future. Basically, after one of the players with hit and run makes a block. Now, at the moment, we're assuming that's part of a blitz action or just a straight up block. Once they've made that block, once that block has been resolved, so armor rolled, etc., if the hit and run player is still standing, they can move 1 square, ignoring all tackle zones, as long as the target square is not marked by an opponent. So basically, it's kind of like reverse sidestep. They're going to punch a guy, they're going to run in and blitz a guy, but if they're standing at the end of it, they can step back out into an empty square. Now, I'm saying back because actually they can also punch and then step forward, assuming that there's no one there to mark them. So hit and run, mixed in with the fact that they are now speed 7, means that these guys can be really, really fast. They are tagged by the fact they've not got block. So if you're running them, the first few games you are going to be vanilla dice when it comes to attacking, but as soon as they level up and get blodge, you are good to go, and that hit and run's going to start allowing you to really strike fast and break through, unlike basically any other team. Now, the other positional they've got, and I think the biggest and brightest change to this roster, is the blocker. 0 to 2 blockers, movement 6, edge 3+, armor 9+, they're a little bit tougher. Their strength 4, and they have dodge and defensive. This positional is going to be fantastic. Look for those to become your star players in League. They are 6 SPP, that's 2 touchdowns, that's 1 touchdown, and MVP, that's 3 casualties away from just being able to take block. And at that point, they become a move 6 blodger with strength 4 and edge 3+ dodge. It is going to be phenomenal. Now, there's only 2 on the team. The rest of the team is very vanilla with low armor, medium strength, medium speed, and that dodge. It is going to be a really fun and interesting roster to brew up. But your blitzers are going to be your fast scoring threat. Your blockers are going to be your all-round heavy hitters. They are going to be phenomenal on the pitch, and it's going to be so exciting to see. Okay, so let's get into the rosters then. The first roster that we're going to look at is the full box. So you've bought yourself a box of Amazons. What does that give you, and is that going to be enough for League? Well, phenomenally and brilliantly, yes it is. So if you want to start playing Amazons, all you have to do is pick up one box and basically you're good to go. So the full box roster gives you 2 of those movement 7 blitzers, 2 of those strength 4 movement 6 blockers, 2 of the weird snake throwers who've got on the ball, which is going to give you 3 extra squares on the kickoff and when an opponent makes a throw. So those guys are going to be sneaky fast as well. And 6 linemen, which gives you 12 players, and that is going to give you enough money to take 2 rerolls. This brings you in at 980,000. So if you're running a 1 million league, you're going to end up with 20k left over, and that really does need to be spent on dedicated fans. Now, this roster is great in the fact that it gives you 12 players. Now, it gives you the maximum blitzers, the maximum blockers, and the maximum throwers. So you can start kind of juicing up as you go. Each one of those positionals is going to start getting those SPP from being on the pitch, and they're going to start leveling up nice and quick. The downside of this roster is you do only have 2 rerolls, and in League, they are double the cost, which means you're going to have to save up to 120 to pick up that next reroll. On the plus side, you've got 12 players on this roster. This team, while they all have dodge, is fragile, and you are going to suffer 1 to 3 removals every game, even though they've got dodge. So having that bench person is really useful. The thing you can do, though, is drop your 12th lineman, drop your 12th player, and take an apothecary instead, or drop your 12th player and take a reroll instead. It's going to leave you light on players, but if you take the apothecary, you're going to be able to keep your positionals alive longer, which is going to give them a better chance to level up, or you're taking that 1 less player to start off with 1 more reroll, which is going to save you money in the long run. Now, a slightly alternative build here is the throw and 3. So we've got 2 blitzers, 2 blockers. All of these rosters are going to have those positionals. They are too good to not take. Then we've got 6 linemen and 1 thrower. 3 rerolls, that brings us to 11 players at 960,000. So it's kind of a build upon the full box. You've only got 11 players. Basically, it's the same as the last one, but you've dropped the second thrower. You only have 1 of those thrower positionals. Now, those throwers being 80k gives you a lot of cash to play with. And in this sample, what we've done is we've given them the 3rd reroll there. You are down a player. You've only got 11, so as soon as 1 goes, they're gone. And you don't have an apothecary in this build either, so the first game is going to be quite crunchy. But when you come in at 960, that gives you 40,000 to spend on dedicated fans. That means your first game is going to be with 5 dedicated fans, which means you are going to be earning at least 30k, and with a couple of touchdowns, you're going to have enough by the end of that first match to pick up either the apothecary or your 12th player. So the first game is going to be a little light, but this way round, you're saving up for 50k to buy your apothecary, for 50k to pick up an extra linewoman, instead of saving up for 120 to get that second reroll. This one gives you the positionals you need, the rerolls you need, right there at the start of the league. But the first few games may be a little bit risky because you won't have a bench, you won't have that apothecary, but realistically, by the time you hit game 3 or game 4, you'll have a 12th player and you'll have that apo to keep your key positionals living long enough to develop into legends. And the other roster there is the no thrower roster, or the old school build. So 2 blitzers, 2 blockers, 8 linemen, 3 rerolls. That gives you 12 players and those 3 rerolls to start the game with. This one also comes in at 980, so you can take a couple of dedicated fans there, which I do recommend in League. It's going to help you keep more cash. And when it comes to this roster, as you develop, you may want to pick up a thrower. You may just want to replace a lineman or a blitzer or blocker that dies. So you kind of hit that starting point. You can also drop your 12th player and start out with the apothecary. No thrower. And the thrower is a really interesting one in Amazons, and it is still early. The thrower looks great to me. Not ubiquitous. You can go without it. The interesting thing about this roster is that out of the gate, you don't really have anybody you want to throw to. Being able to pull off that quick throw to one of these blitzers is going to give you a pretty good scoring game. But there's no integral catch, so you don't really have like that specific target. So the throwing game isn't going to be a requisite of playing Amazons. If you want to play consistent dodge-based battling, then you don't need that thrower at all, and you can save that 30k and put it into having that extra person or having that third reroll. The way this one is going to run is you are going to be playing basically old school Amazons with this. The difference is you don't have those 4 blockers, so you don't have the integral thrower. Everything here is going to be based on simple dice. That's why 3 rerolls is going to be so important. Okay, for me, if I was running Amazons in a league, I would go for the throw in 3. You get those 2 blitzers to be your faster scoring threats. You get those 2 blockers who need to be scoring touchdowns at the beginning of your season. Getting those blockers, the first few TDs, to get them to block is going to make the rest of your team really accelerate. And having 1 thrower is just too good not to take. I know that if you drop the thrower, you get that extra 50k to take the apothecary, which is going to give you more consistency, or the 12th man. But for 30k, just being able to upgrade a lineman to having on the ball, safe, pass, and passing 3+ just gives you too much of an opportunity to have an extra element to your team that you wouldn't otherwise have. So while using the thrower to throw stuff shouldn't be the primary goal, and won't be for most Amazon teams, for 30k, having it in your pocket is probably really worth it. And the way on the ball works is you get 3 squares before the ball lands on the kick, so you get a chance to move your thrower underneath it and try and catch it. It's almost another opportunity to pick up the ball at the start of a drive, and every now and again that on the ball is going to give you a little bit of extra help when it comes to defense, because when your opponent makes a pass action, your thrower can move. I don't mind having 2 throwers on the basis of that, but the throw in 3 I think is the strongest point to start for League. You are down a 12 player / apothecary, but you start with 40k. You can even not buy the dedicated fans, and immediately after your first game you'll have 50k. From what we've seen in leagues in Blood Bowl 2020, starting with a good DF is just going to brew up more and more and more money. This is not going to be a slow roster. You are going to score a few touchdowns every game, and that's going to build up your cash as well because of how League works. So starting this roster like this with 4 dedicated fans added to it, that's going to start with DF5 every game. You're going to farm that cash, pick up your 12th man, pick up your apothecary. You've got the key positionals. Later on, if you want, you can take a second thrower, but it's not necessary. But that thrower on here at the start is going to give you those options. It's going to save you a turn for offense every now and again. And that's what it's so good to do. Plus, and this is something that I absolutely love, this is just 1 box. So this, you don't have to do anything. You just pick up 1 box of Amazons, you decide whether you want to start with 2 or 3 rerolls, and you're good to go. I wholeheartedly believe anything you can do to start with 3 rerolls for the Zons is definitely the right thing to do. You've got dodge, which is great. You don't want to be 3+ dodging very often. What you want to be doing is punching and picking up the ball, and you don't have block and you don't have sure hands. So 3 rerolls I think is going to be really important when you're starting with a beginner team in a league. You don't have that block to make your combat consistent. You don't have the ball handling skills to make, you know, doing the ball stuff consistent. So actually 3 rerolls I think is the right place to be. So yes, your first game you're going to have no bench. Your first game you're going to be risking your positionals without an apothecary. But welcome to Blood Bowl 2020. You're now a real team, and that is a real risk for your first few games. But the great thing here is that you've got every positional you need right from the get-go, and all you're doing is padding out your roster with 100k's extra stuff in 50k intervals. 2 good games, and you've got 12 players, an apothecary, and everybody on your roster ready to start leveling up. And that is awesome, because I cannot wait to see how fast your blitzers become and how strong your blockers become, because this team is going to be super fun. Anyway, let me know what you think of these rosters. If there's one I've missed, which would be interesting given that there's only kind of 6 positionals, but I'm always interested to hear what you think. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.